Hi everyone, it's Dianna Caldwell here from RE/MAX Affiliates in the Caldwell Realty Group. And today I have the pleasure of talking to my good friend, Christine Luken. Christine is an author and a financial expert. She's also a financial lifeguard. So Christine, do you want to tell us a little bit about what it is exactly that you do?
Yeah, well, thank you so much for having me, first of all.
Absolutely, I'm excited that you were willing and able to join me.
Yes. Yeah, so I'm a financial lifeguard, and that is not the same thing as a financial advisor. So I always tell people I don't have anything to do with investments. It's really more about helping people to decrease their debt, increase their savings, direct spending to what's really important to them so that the stress is taken out of their personal finances. You know, they've got a system, it's organized, and they know that they're on track to achieve their goals.
Oh, that's awesome.
Yeah.
So I would say in times like this, which is unprecedented times, and we've got a lot of people who are unemployed, hopefully temporarily, but in some cases maybe not. Getting a hold of people's finances and getting control of them. Maybe you're working with people who've never had to worry about that before. So,
Yeah.
what is some advice that you can give folks out there?
Yeah, well, you're right. You know, this pandemic, it's unique because there's a lot of people that are going through financial hard times all at once. But what's not unique about it is that there's going to be times throughout our lives where we have emergencies that happen. We have things that are unexpected. And so the first and most important thing to do when you're in a financial crisis is to really assess the situation. Because if you were in a position before this happened where, there was plenty of money to pay the bills, you didn't have excessive debt, but maybe your spouse lost their job and that's, 50% or more of your income. Well, you don't really know what you're dealing with, right? You only knew that before, hey, we had enough with some left over. So the first step always has to be getting a clear picture of exactly what's going on in your finances. And that means really digging down and seeing how much have you been spending each and every month. What does it take to run your household and make sure that all the bills are paid? Because most times people don't really even know. I think we're a little bit fortunate in this situation because of, the quarantine and the sheltering in place, that there are certain things that we're not spending money on, right? I mean, I think I've spent $12 in gas in the last 30 days, which is like nothing, right? We're not getting our nails done or our hair done. Right. So, there are certain expenses that we're probably not incurring, but there's other things that maybe we're even spending more on right now. A lot of people are telling me I'm spending way more on groceries because we're not eating out. And certainly we hope those things are going to equal out. But I think what makes this very emotional is that we don't know when this is going to be over, right? It's not like an event happened, it's done, right? This is still unfolding. So the uncertainty is really what is driving fear in a lot of people. So we need to take that out of at least the parts that we know about our finances. And so that really does mean examining everything and seeing, okay, if we've got to cut an income, what does the new normal look like? What are our expenses? What things might we be able to cut? Because you can't make good decisions if you don't have good information.
Right. Exactly.
Well, and then people end up making a decision out of panic, right? They'll do something like pull money out of their 401k before they've even analyzed the situation to see, do you even need that money? Like, maybe if we make some adjustments, we're only short $300 a month, not $3,000 a month. So depending on what the situation is, those call for two drastically different forms of action. So
Right, exactly.
Yeah, that's definitely the first part. The other thing that I tell people is, if you are in hardship right now, it's okay to make minimum payments on your debt. If you're somebody that's always paid extra or always paid your credit card off in full every month, but you've had a cut in income, if you have to do that for a short period of time until you're back to work, then go ahead and do that, right? And don't feel bad about it. Like you said, there's probably a lot of people who have never been in this situation before. I've talked to individuals who have said, I just got laid off and I have been working since I was 15 years old. Like, I don't know how to not work.
I don't know what to do with themselves and probably are in a little bit of a panic mode.
Right, right, absolutely. So, and that leads right into my next bit of advice is that if you are in that situation, see if you qualify for assistance, and don't feel bad about requesting it if you need it. Because that's what it's there for. Now, on the flip side of that, if you don't really need it, let somebody else have it, right? Because we've heard some of these things of, companies getting SBA money who really shouldn't get SBA money. And, so, I mean, that goes down onto the individual level as well. But, don't feel ashamed if you need to call your bank and say, what sort of programs do you have to help me with my mortgage or to help me with my car payment? The only thing that I would say is that, if you're going to do one of those deferral programs, make sure you clearly understand exactly how it works, because there have been some people who have signed up for, deferring your mortgage payment for 3 months, but then they find out after 3 months, they have to pay all 3 months at the same time.
Yeah.
That might not be helpful.
And that's what we're warning people is, forbearance is not forgiveness.
Right.
And you do need to understand what the ramifications of it is, because you are going to have to pay it at some point in time.
Right.
So, so that's a good point.
Yes.
Sure.
Well, and the other point that I'll make is that sort of assistance is happening at the bank level. And so they basically get to make their own rules, whether or not, first of all, if they even want to do that. Second of all, if they do, how does that look? Are they tacking those payments onto the end of the arrangement, or is it you're going to owe all those 3 payments in 90 days? So it's not like a government program where you can go and look up and see these are the rules. Right. You have to reach out to your specific banking institution and find out exactly what help is there and if you qualify for it.
Yeah, that's an excellent point.
Yeah.
So Christine, I know you've been doing some things over the last couple months, webinars and different training. I guess you'd call it training. What would you call it?
I do a lot of money wellness webinars for sure. Yes.
Yeah. So, and you can work with anyone no matter where they are. So,
yeah, absolutely.
What a webinar would be.
So typically with the webinars, this is companies or organizations who are hiring me to teach this for their people. So I have several different wellness companies that actually provide that stuff directly to companies. But occasionally I do have, individual specific companies who, have heard of me through some other channel, and they say, we'd love to bring you in to do this webinar on mastering your spending or saving for the future. And I have actually produced a webinar specifically for COVID-19. And that has been very popular over the last month for sure. I think I've done that one like 7 times.
That's awesome.
Yeah. Yes. Yeah. And then the other thing that I do is coaching individuals and couples if they want very specific recommendations. And typically it's not people who are struggling with income. Most of my clients are actually 6-figure income earners. So they're, P&G executives, they're business owners. Real estate professionals as well, those people with variable income. So it's like the income isn't the problem, it's what are we doing with it, right?
Yeah, and maybe not living in denial. So
Yeah, well, and it's so easy to have that lifestyle creep, like as you work your way up through the ranks in your career and you get these pay, these pay increases, you reward yourself with different things, whether it's a new car or we're going to send the kids to private school. And all of a sudden, all those things that were like wish list items now are suddenly necessities.
right.
And sometimes that's hard in a situation like this where you have a reversal and you're looking at everything saying, well, these are all necessities.
Right.
Right? Just because you've gotten used to them. And it's like, sometimes it's hard to have to remind people that private school is not a necessity. And, that SUV with the $800 payment, that's not a necessity.
It just becomes a source of stress at that point, right?
Yes, it does. So, unfortunately, sometimes in situations like this, there are some hard choices that have to be made. So, which is tough because money is emotional.
Right. And it helps to have someone who's on the outside and objective to help lead you through that.
Absolutely.
Speaking of money is emotional, that is the title of your first book.
Yes,
I thought I had it here, but I loaned it out to someone.
Oh, I have one here. Yeah, money is emotional. Prevent your heart from hijacking your wallet. Yeah, well, and we didn't talk about this at the beginning, but, one of the reasons I decided to become a financial coach is because in my 20s, I crashed and burned financially despite having an accounting degree. And, it was because I was engaged to a guy that didn't have good money habits. It was an unhealthy relationship. So there were more things wrong than just the finances. But that was a big issue. And by the time I broke off the engagement at 26, I was really in a hole financially. And honestly, I didn't even have money to leave the relationship, to move out. So I was back in with mom and dad, which of course, after you've been out on your own for 4 or 5 years, that feels like the worst thing ever. But, I found myself with a bunch of debt, with a negative credit. Well, I don't think it was a negative credit score, but it was a bad credit score to be sure. And so I learned the hard way that money is emotional, because I was working as an accountant. I knew the logic part behind it. And what I realized is that there was a gap there out in the personal finance space. There was a lot of people teaching, like, this is how you do it. Like, if you don't like your results, you need to change your actions and follow these 7 steps. And then, people would do that and maybe they'd be good for a year or 2 years and then they'd fall off the wagon.
Right.
And so then they would think, well, what's wrong with me? Like, what's wrong with me that I can't do this? And I see other people that are doing it. And the problem is that money is emotional. And all of those things that we think about money, that we say about money, our early experiences about money, those are like a magnet. And we can make ourselves do things differently for a short period of time. But if we don't go in and fix what's underneath, we're always going to be pulled back into those old patterns. So the way I love to explain it, which you'll like this, since real estate is your jam, if I were to give you a blueprint to build a ranch house, it doesn't matter how hard you work or how fast you work or who you hire or what building materials you buy, you're never going to get a 2-story. Ever. I don't care how hard or how fast you work, you're going to get a ranch. And so what I see is people are, they're trying to build a 2-story with their finances, but they have a ranch blueprint. And so the only way for them to get a 2-story is to go back and to change that blueprint. And so that's what I teach, you know, in all my webinars and my books, in my coaching, is we don't just talk about the financial strategies, we also talk about all that stuff under the surface. Because if we don't change that, it's always going to pull us back into our old habits. And then we get caught in that loop of, I tried it, I failed, I'm a failure, right? And honestly, the question isn't what's wrong with me, it's what happened to me. What happened to me in the past that I think about money this way, that I interact with my money in this way. So I love the psychology of money, and I could talk about it for like 5 hours. But I know we don't have nearly that much time.
It's true. You know, it really is all about your mindset and the way you feel about it, and the way you've been, maybe the way you grew up, or
Yeah.
you know, or some emotional, like what you went through.
Yeah,
Yeah,
absolutely.
for sure. And then your second book, Manage Money Like a Boss. Tell us about that one.
Yes. Yeah, so that book is for entrepreneurs. And I find that a lot of entrepreneurs are very creative individuals, and the traditional methods of teaching people how to manage their money in their business are very, very dry. They're very boring, right? Like, here's this accounting book. And most people who identify as creatives, and I think almost all entrepreneurs would say that they are at least a little bit creative.
Yeah.
You know, they rebel against that. They're like, ugh, this is boring. I don't, you know, I just want to be out there doing my thing. You know, I want to be out there writing books. I want to be speaking to people. I want to be coaching. I want to be selling houses. Like, I don't want to deal with this part of my business.
I put both hands there because
And, you know, certainly, yeah, well, and certainly I am not opposed, and I think it's a great idea for people to be working with a CPA or a bookkeeper, or somebody to help them manage the day-to-day in their business finances. But it's also really important for them to understand those basics so that they can communicate with that person and hold them accountable. Because unfortunately, I've had clients in the past who they've been paying somebody to do their bookkeeping or their accounting. And, you know, when I start helping them and coaching them and we start digging into things, I'm like, this person hasn't classified your QuickBook transactions for like 4 months. And you've been paying them $500 a month for the last 6 months, right? And it's just because they're busy and they're not paying attention. And obviously, you know, if you treat your business finances that way, there's going to be trouble. And I picked that title for a very important reason. So it's important that we manage our money like we are the boss of it. And I use this analogy because most people get it. So even if you're an entrepreneur, you've probably had a boss at one point, right? Can you think of who your last boss was that you reported to?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
Okay. So the last like real boss that I reported to, his name was Scott. So, you know, if I would imagine me being an employee, you know, I get back from lunch and I realize I'm caught up on my work, right? So I go into my boss's office and I say, hey, Scott, I'm finished with everything. Is there something you'd like me to be working on? Well, it would be really weird if he hid under his desk or ignored me, right? Like, we would think that is completely unacceptable behavior from a boss.
Right.
But a lot of entrepreneurs are ignoring their money and hiding from it. And if we think about, a good employee wants to be managed. A good employee still needs direction, right? Mm-hmm. So your money can't be a good employee for you if you're not managing and directing it on a regular basis. And so, the whole gist of Manage Money Like a Boss is explaining business finances in a way that's easy to understand, that is not going to put creative people to sleep. There's a lot of stories, a lot of examples, a lot of hands-on exercises for them to do to take out the intimidation factor. So, yeah. Yeah, and it's just so interesting, just like the simple things of, having your business paperwork organized and having a system. It doesn't have to be super complicated. I tell business owners all the time, if you don't have, if you're not invoicing a ton of people and have, contracts and a whole bunch of paperwork you have to organize, I said, just get 12 file folders, get some that are pretty colors and put, January, February, March. And I said, as you get receipts for tax purposes, just put them in there. That's all you got to do.
Yeah.
I had an artist friend. This was her filing system. So first of all, she hated tax time. It usually took her like 3 or 4 days to get all of her paperwork organized into her tax person.
Right.
She hated it. She always extended, filed an extension. But this is what her system was. She had a shoebox on her desk that she would put receipts in. When it started to get full, it would stress her out, so she would dump it into a trash bag and put it in her closet. So when tax time came, she would have this trash bag full of receipts that she would have to sort through and organize and add up in order to get the information to her tax professional. And I told her, I said, all you need is 12 file folders, and I've completely given you back 3 days of your life every year. And she was like, oh, you're right.
One of those little expandable things that has the months in it, and I just stick them in there.
Yeah, and it doesn't have to be complicated, right? So, but there does need to be some time and attention that is spent on your finances on a regular basis. Now, you might not necessarily have to be paying attention to your finances every single day, but, I'm a big fan of doing the weekly check-ins with your business. And, I just do both my business and personal at the same time. So I have a certain day of the week where I spend 15 to 20 minutes a piece on my personal finances and then on my business finances. And that's just, paying bills, checking the account, logging into QuickBooks.
Yeah.
And that's enough so that I'm not obsessed, because we don't want people going the other way either. But I'm informed and I know what's going on. And that's really the most important thing.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, I think both of those books, lots of people could definitely benefit from them. So
yes,
now you can get them on Amazon, right?
Yes, absolutely. Yep.
What about your website, christineluken.com?
Yes, or both of the books have their own dedicated page, and it's just the title. So if they want to go to moneyisemotional.com or managemoneylikeaboss.com, they can download the first 3 chapters so they can check it out and see, if it is something that they want to read cover to cover.
Well, this has been great, Christine. Thank you for joining me. And do you have anything else you'd like to leave us with?
There's one little piece of advice that I feel very strongly about giving people in this current environment, and that is to please, please, please do not take early withdrawals out of your retirement account. So, I know that Congress has temporarily waived penalties, but, the financial planners that I'm talking to are like, that is the absolute worst thing that you could do right now. Because you are going to have to pay taxes on that money, and you're basically selling while the market is down, and you're going to miss out on the upswing. So I
Yeah.
keep telling people, don't steal from your older self, right? It is your job to take care of elder you. There's no such thing as a retirement loan. So it's very important that you stay the course. And if you're feeling really panicked, call your financial advisor. Like, this is what they are there for right now.
So if you're in a crisis right now, that's the last thing you want to do.
Yeah, the guy, one of my friends that I talked to, he basically said, I would beg, borrow, and steal before cashing in any retirement funds.
Yeah, I think that's great advice.
Yeah.
We eventually want to retire, and if you do that, you put yourself in the position that you're not going to be able to, or at least not when you want it. Yeah.
Right. And that's the last time. I mean, you don't want to be having to go back to work when you're 65, 70, 75, right? It's while you're younger and energetic, do the hard work now.
Well, this has been great advice, Christine. Thank you so much.
Well, thanks for having me.
Absolutely. And I look forward to seeing you here at our next roundtable event. So
Awesome.
okay, thanks so much. And we'll talk to you soon.